All right. Today I want to review something that I was watching and I found it very interesting. And what it essentially was Tucker Carlson. He was talking to this guy, his name is Charlie Kirk. And what he essentially does is that he is the host of the Charlie Kirk Show, and then he's also the CEO, founder and CEO of Turning Point USA, which is the largest conservative youth movement in America. And so he's on Tucker, and they have a very interesting conversation, I thought. And the portion of it that I wanted to cover was basically on the desperation in America, and they specifically talk about BNPL, which is buy now, pay later. So there's a story recently about you could basically finance your food, like you could finance a burrito at Chipotle through, I think it was Klarna. And I thought that when that came out, I was like, this is a hilarious headline, but then B, just like how sad that this is the world that we live in, where people are having to finance their food. Just insane to me. And so this is a topic that I've kind of wanted to cover, but they talk about it here, and I really like the conversation that they had around it. And then I wanted to add some of my perspective as well, because I think it has a broader societal trend, and I think it's going to be a huge issue. So I want to dive into it without further ado. Dive into it, and then we can kind of talk about it as we go through.
So what is causing this? Well, number one, I don't want to get like too Ron Paul libertarian, but the Federal Reserve pumping in cheap money post-2008 has just been a catastrophe. We have spent too much money, borrowed too much money. We have deteriorated our currency, and the purchasing power every generation is getting weaker. So your dollar is actually going less and less as far as it has year over year. So then what is the consequence of this? So you have a generation that is renting a lot more than it's owning. So when you do not own something, why would you defend it? So you find then political radicalization start to seep in, because an entire generation is getting routinely cynical year over year as their net worth either stays at zero or goes into negative. Now, my question for every Republican senator and congressman watching this: if you do not know these four letters, then you are not doing your job. BNPL. Do you know what that means?
No clue.
Buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later is how 60%, according to surveys, of Generation Z is paying for things month to month. They're not credit cards. So this is not regulated by credit bureaus. It's not regulated with credit checks. It's basically anything from Amazon to Instacart, groceries, clothing, furniture. You can finance anything. It's BNPL. It's run by three main companies.
And just to start, the fact that it's not regulated, because it's literally the same as taking a loan or putting it on a credit card. There's no difference whatsoever. So to me, the fact that they are getting away with being able to do this is insane. And the funniest thing about it is that, spoiler alert, when it didn't work out, because the types of people that are financing burritos may have an issue repaying you, or may just walk away completely. Now they're trying to put in some sort of, denotation that essentially would work as a ding on your credit score. So it's not tied to any of the bureaus, and it can't affect, but oh, by the way, we're going to try and, either share data and create a user profile for you that works exactly the same as a credit score. But it's not credit, so we shouldn't be regulated like that. So they're basically trying to have their cake and eat it too, where, instead of just they can get screwed and like someone can walk away from their BNPL, their buy now, pay later. Oh no, we want to know that you're going to do that, and we want to have an accurate picture of how good you will be able to pay us back. But it's not a credit card. It's not a loan. It's just, it's BNPL. It's totally different. No, it's not. Which is one of the things that infuriates me about BNPL. I'm like, it's literally a credit card. So like, shut up.
Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay. And essentially, you're 21, 22 years old. You can split a pizza into 4 payments. Sounds great, right? This is the modern tech economy.
Buy a pizza on credit?
Yes. You right now.
Happening now?
You can go to Instacart right now and either through Klarna, Affirm, or Afterpay. Those are the 3 big actors. These are non-credit regulated bureaus.
Shut those fuckers down tomorrow. No, I'm serious. I'm so offended.
And by the way, 2 of them are foreign companies, just so we're clear. One is a Swedish company and one is an Australian company. I did a deep dive into this.
You can buy a pizza on credit?
Yes, you can buy almost anything on credit. Concert tickets, you can buy. So when I'm a big sports fan, I'm a huge Chicago Cubs fan. It's just fun. I grew up in Chicago. When I go to buy tickets at Wrigley Field, they say, finance this over the next 3 years using Klarna.
Actually?
Yes. Concert tickets, Taylor Swift tickets. So what you have is a workaround.
What's the collateral?
There's no credit score, so it's just you. It's like your Social Security. They're collateralizing you. So it's very high risk for the quote unquote lender, but they have the late fees and the penalties make these companies eventually whole because they know they got you. And again, this is not regulated by traditional credit bureaus. So the federal government has not really waded in on this yet. And again, you could...
Which they absolutely should, because it is literally credit or loans. Like they have, in other countries, they actually have like micro loans where, just because I've been in the finance industry, but in other countries, they actually have microloans, but it's usually for like people starting a business, right? Where it's like, okay, we need to finance putting in this well, or we need to, we're going to start a little chicken farm or something like that, where it's literally, it's very small amounts of money that you're taking out because it doesn't take a lot, but the impact on the community will be huge. So it's basically allowing people to, in these instances, not in this is an awful thing that is cropping up, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But microloans in other places allow people to basically take out these small kind of loans like this, to this scale where they can make a larger outsized impact in their community. But what this is, and the difference between that, is that this is basically financing for awful things, more or less, right? Like, I cannot afford an entire pizza, so I'm going to finance it and pay it over multiple times. I'm sorry, but you should not be purchasing a pizza if you cannot afford a pizza. Go to the grocery store, buy a frozen pizza, whatever. It is an awful enabling of the worst actions of people, and it is allowing an unregulated loan essentially to go out, micro loan, and there's no, again, it's just awful. And like, I'm sorry, but if you're taking out these types of loans, there's no accountability for letting people know. It's just, oh yeah, like any other app where you just go in, yes, I agree to the terms, and there's no understanding because it's a nascent industry. There's no real understanding that this is essentially the exact same thing as a credit card, with like late fees and all this other stuff put on top of it. And the other issue a major issue that I have with it is that it is not regulated. Like, these industries have been regulated for a reason, because there are a lot of awful things that can occur when it's not. And so it's basically skirting around the outside and saying we're not credit, so we can't be regulated, but yes, you're literally functioning the same. Tell me what the difference is in the comments, if you can. Tell me what the difference is between BNPL and credit cards. There's literally pretty much functionally none.
I mean, I'm just like...
your younger folks can affirm everything I'm saying. I'm not... Right? I mean, am I correct? I'm not making any of this up. It's BNPL. So when I sit down with a Republican senator...
I never think of myself as out of it or not in touch or whatever. I flatter myself that I've got my thumb on the pulse of the country. I am shocked. I've heard people refer to this. I didn't realize if you can buy a pizza on credit, someone needs to...
But here's the kicker, and your groceries. Ugh. The belief is that Gen Z is doing this to live above their means. Most are actually doing this to meet their means.
And this is a point this is what I really want to talk about with it, because the actual issue is that, yes, it is being used to meet needs. And the thing about this is that if this did not exist, right, you would see two things. Number one, you would see credit cards get even more loaded up. And we have, we being the public, can go in and view, like, how many times in the past have you heard, like, oh, it's dire because Americans are carrying X amount of credit card charges month to month. And so that is trackable. This BNPL, these are all private companies that are not tracked in that same way. So that's one indicator that the people at the top and people in government can take a look at and say, oh, Americans are carrying over, because these are all publicly traded companies, all these credit card companies, these are all publicly traded companies that have to disclose this information. So you can look at it and you can say, oh, the American people are in real, desperate times because they have this much credit that they're carrying over month to month. This is circumventing that. So you're not able to take a look at, okay, what is the indicator that the American people are really struggling, and how do we help them with that issue? No, this skirts that entire conversation. So it's circumventing the conversation of how bad it actually is for the average American. And then the other part of that is that it's not allowing Americans to fall out, quote unquote. So it's providing a secondary safety net where, because think about it just in a grocery store example, right? If I'm paying 50% of my income for rent, and then 25% of my income for utilities, and then all I have left is 25%, and I can't afford to buy fruits and vegetables, or I can't afford to buy these other food things. Well, then these companies that are having these, or going out for entertainment, these companies are going to start to feel pressure, and then they're going to start clamoring for reform because it's going to directly impact their pocketbooks. And so by providing this safety net where you can go out and you can finance it down the line in the future, that's going to be a delaying on that indicator that, hey, Americans are spending nothing on going out to the movies. Americans are spending less at the grocery store because they can't afford it, because everything else has gotten so expensive that people literally cannot afford to survive. And then again, these industries that are being affected they have a bunch of money. They're going to start lobbying against, rent prices, people basically increasing the price, basically rent fixing, all the negative things that are going on out there in the economy that I like to talk about in my videos. Well, all of those things are going to actually start to be addressed, because people aren't going to be able to go to sports, games. They're not going to be able to go to concerts. It's going to actually start materially affecting other people that have money that can then argue on behalf of the average citizen. And so it's an additional net that is put there, and it's not even really helpful. It's just delaying us being able to go out and say this is a real problem and it needs to be addressed. And so that is my biggest issue with buy now, pay later, is those two, if you combine them, is, it's just a very dire circumstance for our entire civilization, economy, all of these things. And it's basically lagging those indicators from fully presenting themselves.
That's the definition of predatory.
Right. And so, again, this is not structurally healthy debt. So there's an argument for debt if you have a mortgage, because the whole system is kind of rigged towards mortgages.
Of course it is.
You could deduct the interest, the asset price goes up.
It's hard to get off the mortgage addiction. I did it, but
there's an argument for it.
You take your lumps if you don't have a mortgage.
And I think there's an argument that's actually an okay. And
yeah, you could.
Yeah, and the thing with mortgages is then, there's two arguments for it, right? The thing is, it's an appreciating asset, so even if, worse comes to worse, unless there's a huge collapse and you bought when it was too high and there's a correction, and okay, that is not great, but 90% of the other scenarios, it's always better to be in on a house, right? So like that makes sense because you're in, you're getting your foot in the door, you have an appreciating asset no matter what, almost no matter what. And so, that there is an argument that that's okay. There is an argument though that you shouldn't even be, you should, whatever you can afford, that is all. There's no financing anything. It's just, can I afford it? Then yes, you have the right to get it. If you can't afford it, then, save up money. I don't know what to tell you. So, and then my argument for that second model is then prices have to come down because you can't take out a loan for $1 million, right? You can only afford what you can afford. And so then that would drop all the prices because, how many people can afford $1 million home, right? Bring the prices down to things that people can actually afford. So that would be my actual argument of what I would like to see. But in lieu of that, okay, fine, like a mortgage, it makes sense, right? Go ahead, whatever. But exactly correct on this BNPL debt is awful. It is an awful marker. It's terrible. It is not good for the economy in any way, shape, or form. And again, it's putting off the red flags saying that there's actually a problem here by allowing people to continue a lifestyle that they cannot actually afford.
Reconcilable type of debt.
I know smart people have mortgages.
If you are in investment banking and you have student loan debt and that student loan certificate, that credential got you the investment bank, okay, you bet on yourself. Maybe that's justifiable. Again, I'm very anti-college, as you know. There's really no place where you can make an argument that financing your Whole Foods order is good for you.
But to do that to young people who really, I'm 56 and I'm still terrible with money. It's hard. It's hard. And I don't think I'm not lazy, and I don't think I'm profligate, but I also think
And this is actually a really good point too, because I know one of my really good friends works in mortgages. And so when you get a mortgage, you basically have to run your credit. And it's a full credit report where literally every single thing that you have outstanding is on that report. And he will regularly say, if, say there's someone who makes $1 million a year, that person is going to spend $1 million a year. So, what Tucker is saying is that, and I 100% agree with him, because this basically is what my buddy always says, is that, everyone's bad with money. And that's the problem with BNPL, is that it allows you to think that you have the capacity to go out and spend more than what you actually can afford. And that's actually the problem with, credit cards and loans and subscriptions and all these things, is that at the time you're like, yes, okay, I can afford, it's not something that I actually have to think about. I'm not putting the full cost of that item into my mind and like, okay, I can't actually afford $100,000 car. You're not saying that. You're saying I can afford $700, $900, whatever, $1,200, car payment over the month. And then you get yourself so highly leveraged that if anything negative occurs, you lose your job, you get your hours changed if you're in a service industry and now you're not making as much. Well, now you're in a real predicament. And that's the thing is, I was always, taught that you use your credit card as the cash that you have, and you're just using it as a form of payment, and you pay it all off at the end of the month. There's no carrying over. There's no any of this kind of stuff. And so that is a very good way that you should think about your financial situation, is like have a very real understanding of how much you have and what you can afford to spend. But to his point though, no, that is not the way that 99.999% of people think about their finances. And most people, if you make $1 million, you're going to find a way to spend $1 million, which is insane to me because that's not the way that I've always thought of it. But that is the way that consumerism in America works. And so, it's by allowing BNPL, it lets you throw that, oh, I'm, paying for Uber Eats and, it's basically a $50 pizza. And it's like, okay, well, you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking, oh, I'm making payments of $10 for the next, 5 months or whatever. And it adds up, and then quickly you're going to find yourself in a very bad spot. And so that's my point on it, is that, again, it diffuses the responsibility. Like, really, again, my argument would be we go back to everything is cash, right? And you can literally only spend, you have your account, here's the amount of money, and this is what you can spend, and if you can't spend it, you don't deserve to have it. Because at the end of the day, if everyone functioned in that frame of mindset, we would all be better for it.
I'm easily fooled because I'm distracted. And if I was 21, imagine how much more unsophisticated I would be and how much more vulnerable to predatory behavior like that. And everything is so easy because everything is digital now. I mean, that's an awful thing to do to young people.
And it creates a
And that's another really good point, is that there have been studies done that say that digital currency is much easier to spend than cash, because cash, what happens is when you are actually handing something over, like, money, cash, it actually fires something in your brain that is like, it's kind of like a pain receptor, where it's like, oh no, like I'm losing something. Like, the actual concept is I'm handing over X amount of money. I'm actually watching it go out the door, and this is painful to me because I worked, X amount of hours, or, whatever. Like, this is something that I value, is my time and the money that I'm receiving for it. And by spending, giving you this amount of money for this thing, it makes it much more or much less likely that I'm going to spend above my means, because I can see what I physically have, I see what I have left, and then when I'm actually doing the purchasing process, I'm much more reflective of, is this something that I actually need, and is this bringing me enough value for the money that I'm giving you for it? And when you move to credit model, it completely removes that process in your brain, because it's a level of abstraction. And they do this in like video games and stuff, where they'll add in all these extra currencies so that you're completely removed away from the dollar amount that you're spending on the game. It's the same thing. Life is a game, and that's exactly what's happening with credit and BNPL and loans and all these things, is you're removing yourself from the amount of money that you're actually paying for something. And I think that is detrimental to society.
Subterranean debt market that a lot of these young people think this is how you pay for stuff. They haven't been educated otherwise. They're like, oh yeah, I'll just, pay for that meal in 5 installments.
What are the interest rates like?
They can get very high. I don't want to speak out of turn, but they can get to be double digits, right? And so that's really where they get you, is the late fees.
This is so bonkers.
And so it's not regulated by traditional APR. So it's a gray area. And I think people are finally waking up. So, hey, Republicans.
Can you tell me the name of the 3 companies again?
So it's Affirm, Klarna, and Afterpay.
Afterpay, which is the American one.
I believe so, yeah. So one of them was bought by Box and is operated by Square, which I believe is Klarna. I don't want to speak out of term here. One of them it's still Australian run, but it's run by Box. It might be Afterpay. Someone can fact check me on this. But those are the 3 big actors. And they've kind of just gone below the surface. So we create all this economic anxiety by pumping the system with cheap money. Everything gets more expensive. Meanwhile, we have millions of young people that are financing their Coachella tickets, but it's not.
And that's another good point that he's making as well, is there's what I've talked about, which is the red flag indicators that everyone's struggling. But then the other thing too is, again, going back to the supermarket analogy, is that if I am not buying Tillamook cheese or something, right, because it's too expensive, well, then the issue is then that Tillamook has to look and say, we need to reduce our prices. Like, anytime you go to the grocery store and like they run a special and they reduce the prices. Well, they're still making a profit on what they're selling you, but they sell it for so much more regularly. So there's a large margin on those products that they can afford to lose, but they're just charging you more because they know they can get away with it. And again, allowing people to have more money, quote unquote, right? Because this is not good for you at all. But allowing you to be able to finance these things is so very negative because it allows these companies to keep artificially inflated prices. Versus if you can't afford them, then the amount that they're selling goes down, and then they have to drop their prices to increase the amount that's being purchased to then increase their profits again. So again, if people are not allowed to spend over their means, then prices will come down because people can no longer afford those goods. So by pumping in fake money, you're just propping up these companies being able to charge artificially inflated prices.
Not through credit cards, because in credit cards, we have a very regimented, regulated system. I think the credit cards are a disaster, and we need to kind of figure that out. But this is a totally different thing. And so what they've done is they've tried to create a loophole, and federal regulators are slow, as they typically are. And they're like, oh, no, this is not credit cards. This is something else. This is like a repayment thing. It's like buy now, pay later. And it's the opposite of what built the West. What built the West is work now, pay after. So you're going to meaning like we will enjoy things later. That's what built the West. This is like enjoy things now and pay for it later. It is you
know what I don't like about conservatives, and I am one, is that it would never occur to some of them that there are two sides to the story.
And what Charlie was saying is 100%. That's like my mindset, where it's I make the money and I don't buy anything unless I have the money to spend. And that's how I think way more people need to operate. Like I've been in, spots in my history where it's like I've been strung out and like literally one more dollar would have broken the bank, or like $100 or whatever, right? So I've been in the spot, and I can tell you feel so much better when you operate under the I do not buy anything unless I have the money to do it. And like I fully understand my finances, I understand how much money I have, and I've had to dig out from, thousands and thousands of dollars of debt for school, for, all these things. And that was a thing. And even then I was very frugal with the things that I would do. But if you can change your mindset to I'm not going to do things, like you may feel like you're missing out, but I would argue your friends are probably in the same situation as you, and what you should do is just pitch out cheaper alternatives to doing things, because there's a lot of things that you can do for free. And that's the thing, is that again, it will help you so much more in the long run to operate under that mindset, because otherwise you're going to have so much more stress and it's going to be so much worse for you if you are operating under the, enjoy now and find out how to, figure out how to afford it later. That is the wrong mindset.
It's like immediately, they blame the people who are, buying Coachella tickets on credit, which I get. You shouldn't buy Coachella tickets on credit, or your pizza or your Whole Foods order. I totally agree with that. That's stupid. But it doesn't occur to them that there's another side, that the people loaning the money are taking advantage of the dumb people borrowing the money. They both are culpable. And by the way, I think the people...
And I 1,000% agree with this. I had someone that I was dating once that the reason we broke up was financial. And it was basically, she took out a bunch of payday loans, didn't bother to tell me about it until she owed, at the time, I think it was like $8,000. And it was a reoccurring thing where like I had caught it early on. I was generous and paid it off. It wasn't nearly that much, but paid it off. And then it happened again. And again, it's 100% preying on people, where it's instead of not having these things available, by the sheer availability of this being an option, it allows people to go out and do it. Whereas if it didn't exist, you would basically be sitting there and you say, oh, I can't afford it, I'm not going to do it. I literally can't do it, or I'm going to find some other way. I'm going to have a conversation with my significant other, see if there's something we can work out. Let's sit down, let's figure something out. But having all of these things available, and I actually had an argument with one of my friends about it at the time, because my stance was like, F payday loan lenders. Like, they're literally preying on the weakest people and the people who are in the most desperate times. And one of my buddies was like, well, it's a service that's out there if you need it. And the thing is, though, is that no, it's not, because in my opinion, you're literally just enabling people to make bad decisions. And people will be as bad as you allow them to be. And so if you instead say, okay, we're not going to allow these things to be out there, what it would do, in my opinion, is it would change people's mindset, because it's not even an option. So like, instead, now you have to think of, okay, this is what I have available to me. This is my money. This is what I can spend. And so I need to actually be intelligent about what am I doing, and how I'm moving forward, and what I'm spending money on. And I need to actually pay attention to this stuff, instead of just, here's a credit card, don't think about it, spend the money, you can take care of it later, it's an afterthought. And so again, by allowing these services to be available, you're not forcing people to think about these things in the right way. And so then they make worse decisions that are just going to absolutely ruin their lives. So I 100% agree, is that like, fuck all these people, get the fuck out. Like, if I could get rid of the entire industry, all credit, absolutely, I think the US would be better for it.
With more power and more wisdom, probably more culpable, act morally, than the people who are, in other words, like, are we matter at the drug user or the drug dealer?
And then also,
typically the dealer, but conservatives look at all economic arrangements and they never blame the dealer. And I don't know what that is. Like, how about we'll blame everybody? It's bad.
I think the reason, and it's a tick within the conservative movement, is that all of a sudden we're Marxists if we do that. And I think that no, I'm not saying, I don't believe that.
No, but you're absolutely right.
I think that
like, I'm a racist if I don't like mass immigration. Well, I don't like mass immigration, but I'm not a racist. I don't like this, and I'm not a Marxist. Like, right, exactly. It's just name calling to stop you from raising the question.
It's thought terminating cliches.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it's just a smear campaign. What do you do if someone's threatening your money? Like the companies that run these programs, well, you smear them, because you make it toxic. Well, no one wants to be a Marxist. Well, if you get rid of people's freedom to participate in credit and these things, well, now you're a Marxist. And like, oh no, well, I'm not a Marxist. They're just trying to put you on the back foot to keep you from doing what I think would be the good thing, which is getting rid of these profit centers that are only detrimental, only profit on human suffering. And that's exactly what I think credit is.
Is what it is.
So good.
Right? It's stop thinking it, because we're gonna terminate your thought by calling you a Marxist or whatever. And do I think this should be illegal? I don't know, probably. I need to learn more about it. All I'm saying is I am here as a messenger of the next generation. I'm telling you, this is bad. This generation can't own anything. They owe so much more money than generations prior. This is the most indebted generation in history. And I double checked that. Gen Z owes the most money in any history, any generation in history. So we wonder why then all of a sudden, hey, you want to go buy a home now at the age of 38, your credit score is destroyed. Your spending habits are terrible. You don't want to save, and you don't think you should save. And you know what I hear from some of them is they say, well, why should I save when what I saw around me is that you need to get into this economy and spend because the savers got wrecked in 2008. Again, that's an oversimplification, but there is economic nihilism that is set in to a lot of this next generation where they're not participating in any of the upside right now. Any of the upside of the last 5 years. In fact, they're only seeing the downside. They're seeing their part.
Well, and the other thing too is about that is that that's because if you think about, like, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, how could you possibly benefit from any of it? right? Because there's the influx of illegal immigration, which is suppressing wages. Really the thing that he's talking about is basically investing into the stock market. And the issue with that is like, yeah, you can't get in and you can't have it, go if you have no discretionary income. If you're literally if you're financing your groceries, you can't afford to put money into stocks and you're not going to get the gains of the stock market going up. That's just basic 101, economics of like, your money, your personal finance, right? That's basic 101 personal finance. And so, yeah, of course, they're not benefiting from it because it's literally not physically possible for them they can't afford to. They're literally financing groceries. Like, that's not a good place to be in.
Apartments get smaller, their rents go up, their groceries get more expensive. Now, mind you, I think President Trump he's uniquely positioned to solve this. I think that his one big beautiful bill is going to help, and I think growth will help this and lowering interest rates. But let me just say, though, why do I say it's a race against?
I think that's factually inaccurate. And the biggest reason why I think is the tax cuts to the rich. Like, that's just going to continue it's just selling out our entire economy and our entire country so that the richest people get to keep more of their money, which is insane to me. Like, how much is enough? And like, what are you doing with this money? And like, you just have to look at the poorest to the richest, and it is a very dire picture in my opinion. I mean, we're literally talking about buy now, pay later for groceries. Like, you can't even afford to survive off of food. Like, what are you talking about? I think it's completely going in the wrong direction. We're continuing to give more money to the military industrial complex. We're continuing to give, more write-offs to billionaires, and just for what? Like, I don't think that's helping anyone. It's helping 1% of 1% and no one else.
It's the clock. And here's why it should concern conservatives. Because when I'm at dinner parties raising money, some of our donors are a little indifferent about this. They'll have kind of like a, hey, pull yourself up by the bootstraps attitude. That's hard to shake. I don't have that attitude. I actually have a lot more compassion for the 23-year-old that is working a double shift and can't afford anything. But even if you don't care about them, you're not going to like the politics that comes next.
But how did we wind up on the side of the moneylenders?
And this is a very good point that Charlie Kirk is making. All you have to do is look to New York in their mayoral race, their primary, with Mamdani, who won there. And he literally has said, I'm socialist. Things are only, and this is what I've covered, where it's basically swinging back and forth, right? Where you're essentially saying, I'm voting the people in the middle, right, who are not completely on the extremes of like right or left, is that you're essentially saying, this is not going well for me, so now I'm going to swing the other way. And so it's literally going back and forth from two extreme polars, and you're trying to find, hey, I'm going to hit the Republican button. Nothing has changed for the better for me. I'm going to hit the Democrat button. Nothing has changed for the better for me. Well, now I'm going to find the most extreme candidate I can, because tear it all down, because fuck you. That's basically where it is going to. That is the place that it's going to. And the candidates, I think Zoran is, Mamdani is one, proof point, but I think there's going to be a lot more. As, hey, Trump was driving us mad. The economy was good, though. Okay, we went to Biden. The economy, I think people have felt really bad about it, which is probably the main reason why Trump won. Okay, well, now we're going to go back to Trump, and now nothing's getting better under Trump. Now that we're buy now, pay latering for groceries. This is not good, and I think it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. I think COVID showed companies that they could be as predatory with their pricing as possible, just run up pricing. It hasn't come back down. People are feeling worse and worse and worse about what's going on. The CEOs and the top executives are getting greedier and greedier. And at a certain point, there's going to be not even people are going to get fed up with it. There's a tipping point where, and I think we're getting to it, where everything just falls over and then complete anarchy is going to arise from it, in my opinion. And you might not think so. That might sound hyperbolic, but you don't know the people who are being affected. How many Gen Zers do you know? And are they being affected? Have you talked to them? How do they feel about what's going on out there? And if you don't think that these chickens that are being let out are going to come home to roost, they 100% are. And you're not going to like what you're going to see, because it's going to get progressively further left and further right. And then communism versus fascism is not just going to be labels that you try and sling as pejoratives. It's going to be a reality. And is that what you want?
I mean, at no other time in history is that been considered a virtuous business at all. I know a million people in that business, finance we call it, but I don't understand why they became immune from criticism. And I mean, there are places where, I borrowed a lot of money in my life and I'm grateful for it and all that, but I don't think it's virtuous. And I don't think we should say that it's virtuous. I don't think the people who do it should be above criticism. I don't know. Why is the right participating in basically a cover-up of a crime against people?
Or even like from my perspective, why is the right?
And I think you probably knows this, but because special interest money, 100%. That's exactly what it is. Like they pay into these candidates. They allow these things to happen. They turn, in my opinion, they probably turn a blind eye to this BNPL stuff because they're probably getting, campaign finance from them. And so, yeah, it's real inconvenient if, a few $100,000, well, you don't have that money to pay for TV ads anymore or, Facebook ads or whatever. And so, yeah, there's a huge incentive for no one to be talking about it. And again, I think people are just going to get so upset that they're just going to want to throw over the entire apple cart. And I feel like the economy is getting to that point, especially for the younger generations.
So blind to the suffering of the young people that just gave you a Senate majority.
Oh, fair. Good question.
This is a generation that just put you in charge of all your committees. Young people, thank you. You should be saying, thank you, younger voters. You voted Republican in overwhelming numbers. That's one of the reasons, again, I like Dave McCormick a ton, so I'm not throwing him into this, but younger voters helped put Dave McCormick as a U.S. Senator. And I think he gets this more so than most. Donald Trump built this movement of younger voters that galvanized the nation. Again, this is the untold story of the 2024 election, is how Donald Trump won the youth vote in so many parts of the country. Okay, so what are they experiencing? They own nothing. They're renting constantly. And they're involved in this scam of a credit-based economy. Everything is based on credit. And so then what it does is it deteriorates your capacity to have equity. And so, again, I'm not here to propose like a solution of all these different policy requirements. All I'm saying is, how about some national attention for this? How about
there's going to be
we have a conversation about it?
There's going to be a policy solution imposed on the rest of us, which is just stealing your stuff.
Well, that's the thing. So that's what this is where the continuum, whatever you want to call it, the spectrum, whatever DC term, we're here in kind of, again, I am a market guy. I like private property.
I agree.
I like trading. I like when I meet someone good at their craft and they're a carpenter or they're a small business owner. I actually want to save markets. And if we don't do something about this, you're going to get a Venezuelan-style youth-led revolt.
Exactly right.
And I am not exaggerating, because what I see right here is with this young...
That's exactly what I'm saying. Where, yes, 100%, because, again, if you can't afford anything, like, at what point do you get finally so fed up that you're just, I'm done with the whole thing? And that is not going to turn out well for anyone. And that's why, there's a greater wealth disparity than in the Gilded Age. And again, that people were not too happy back then. And if it's even worse than that now, it's going to go downhill very quickly, in my opinion.
Next generation, younger voters, young men in particular, they're going right. They hate all the cultural stuff. The trans stuff's driving them crazy. The hyper-feminization of the economy, which we should talk about, because I want to talk about that. The whole economy's become feminized the last couple decades, and no one has the courage to really talk about it. And
that's not just female empowerment? It's more than that?
No, because we went from blue collar jobs to pink collar jobs.
Okay. I don't want to, I can't wait. But I'm sorry to interrupt.
We can talk about pink collar in a second because that's super important because that's because male unemployment is significantly higher than female unemployment. But let's put a little button in that and just revisit in a second. Political radicalism needs a catalyst. Political radicalism does not come out of peace, prosperity, rising wages, stable families, church attendance, and happy people. Happy people, grateful people do not get behind Vladimir Lenin, and they certainly don't get behind Chavez or Castro.
That's right.
People that own nothing, that feel like their property is diminishing, or they don't have property, or their dollar is diminishing in value, they start to look for alternatives. And so the political project in front of us as conservatives should be, how do we actually de-radicalize?
And that's another issue that I would like to bring up is that if Mamdani gets in and is actually elected as mayor for New York, and say one of his policies gets implemented, and this is the other thing for people in the ruling class, right? Managerial class, whatever you want to label it as, to think about, is that if he gets in and he implements some extremist outcome, some extremist policy that gets an even moderately beneficial outcome, things are going to double down in that direction. So if he wants to raise taxes to whatever on, billionaires or whatever, the top percent or whatever, if that works out well, then it's going to go in a super corrective way that if you just didn't shit on the lowest rung of society, if you were even moderately fair to the lowest rung of society, well, then you could have avoided this outcome, because Zoran would not have gotten past the primary, because they would have said, oh yeah, this guy's nuts, like things are good. But when things are not good, people are going to turn to more and more radical candidates, and if any of their policies succeed in making them even moderately more comfortable or improving their lives, well, now you're getting a double down in that direction, and you're going to be real upset about the outcomes of that. Mark my words on that. There is no good outcome that can come of continuing to degrade the experience of anyone lower on the ladder.
The country in the next couple of years. That's my obsession. And that's why I say I try not to think about all this other stuff, because it just, it's so much brain space. My number one obsession is I know what is coming next, because nobody spends more time on college campuses than me. I hate to pull rank on that, but I spend 100 hours a semester on college campuses.
And you're getting no credits?
No, I get no credits for that. I still don't have a college degree.
I love that.
No, but I listen more, and that's the thing. I know you say, hey, people ask all the time, hey, why do you do these campus events? Why don't you just give a speech? Because I listen as much as I talk. And I put my microphone down, and these videos have been seen around the world and people have grown familiar, but almost all of them are like, Charlie, I don't know what to do. Like trading crypto till 2 a.m. And kind of, betting that the Green Bay Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. That's not enough for me. Charlie, what can we do? And one of the reasons they voted for Trump is they said, President Trump, please reorder this economy for us, because it's severely disordered. And so the Republican Party currently is focused on a lot of stuff. I get it. You have a lot of constituencies to serve, but we have participated, we being the body politic, the last 20 years, especially the last 10, in a concerted effort of intergenerational theft. And if you don't care, Mamdani is just the beginning. All
right. And I think that's a perfect statement to end it on. I 100% agree with that statement there. And that's, I think, exactly why Trump won as big as he did, because a lot of people are feeling a lot of pain. The people at the top have been able to just continue forcing worse and worse things down. People were hoping that, hey, it's Trump's second term. He learned a lot from his first term. He's not going to be, shackled by the system like he was in the first term. Right or wrong, in their assertions about what they thought was going to happen, I'm telling you that's why he got as much support as he did, especially from younger voters, because they feel like something is not fair and they want to upset the entire apple cart. And exactly to the point that I have been making is that, that's why Mamdani emerges. And if he does even remotely well for, people of New York, if he gets elected, well, guess what? Now he's going to be set for, even more influential roles. And, oh, by the way, additional candidates are going to see his model and say, I can do that. And they're going to get increasingly more radical because they're going to say, I want more of these things put into place to really regulate, chomp their teeth into this old establishment. And it's going to continue happening and continue happening. And as boomers pass away, and this is going to be kind of morbid, but as they, continue passing away, well, guess what? Now the new voters are going to be the people who are radicalized against the U.S. and the way that things have been. And I can't blame them at all. And so that is the thing that, I really want to hammer home, is that I feel like this is a very important topic. I think, framing it as the buy now, pay later, and then, transitioning into the desperation and how awful things have become in the U.S., I think is a very important conversation. And I think it's only going to bear out to be, proven to be more important as, the next few years start to come up. Maybe not into the next, presidential election, but certainly the one after that. Because I think, people are trying to vote for change, and change is not happening. And that's the other part, going back to Trump, is that, nothing's happening. The top percent are just getting, free tax cuts, set in place indefinitely. And people are going to be real pissed off at that, especially as the things that were given to the average American expire in 4 years. And so, people are going to continue to be radicalized by these efforts, by the things that are happening to us as the American people. And it's not going to, especially as people are also, by the way, keep in mind, being displaced by AI. You come out of your university and, you thought you're doing the right thing, and now your entry-level position is being replaced by a middle manager who's basically using AI to replace 3 out of 4 of the people who they would have hired in. If you don't think that's going to end insanely bad, in a very bad place, if we're not given something else to, like a UBI or something, I have very bad news for you. So let me know what your thoughts, though, are in the comments below. Like I said, I think this is probably one of the most pressing issues, and this is a lot of my content kind of talks around all the different issues that lead into this. So again, it's something that I am very interested in and I think is very important, but let me know your thoughts about it. If you like my content, please drop me a subscription. It really does help my channel. And if you have made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.